Hi, my name is Katherine Dougherty, and I am the priest at All Souls Episcopal Church in Mechanicsville. We are a mission church that started in the early 2000s and has a church house called the Atlee House, which is along Atlee Road right near Route 301. You may have noticed our yellow house before, or our large community garden, which is next to the house and is one of our feeding ministries. Food from our community garden goes to those in our area who struggle with food insecurities. I am thankful to join Matt and Amy and Joshua and Ryan as we share this Lenten offering. Today I will be reflecting on Luke's version of Jesus calming the sea. I'll first begin by reading Luke's account of this event. It comes from chapter 8 in Luke, verses 22 through 25. One day, he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they put out, and while they were sailing, he fell asleep. A windstorm swept down on the lake, and the boat was filled with water, and they were in danger. They went to him and woke him, shouting, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he woke up, rebuked the wind and the raging waves. They ceased, and there was calm. He said to them, "Where is your faith?" They were afraid and amazed and said to one another, "Who then is this that commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him?" Here ends our reading. As someone who grew up along the coast of Virginia and who loved being out on the water, I know what it feels like to see a storm brewing, and I also know what it feels like to recognize how fast the sea can turn from being peaceful to chaotic. I've watched the waters darken as the storm approaches and the waves increase dramatically. I've also bailed many a boat in hopes of preventing it from sinking. Though some of the disciples were experienced fishermen, a sudden storm can be an unnerving event, even for the best of waterfolk. This Lenten series seems very appropriate as we stand at the 1-year anniversary of one of the biggest storms in our lifetime. As Pastor Matt and Pastor Joshua have noted, this past year has been a collection of storms, and our boats, both individual and community boats, have been battered. In reading and rereading Luke's account of this moment, what stood out to me was Jesus sleeping. Just as a parent soothes a child by rocking them, the movement of a boat upon the water feels very much like that childhood experience. As the boat rides upon its waves, it gently rocks back and forth. And for many, that can be a way that soothes our souls and our minds. It makes sense that our hard-working Jesus was tired, and by the motion of the boat, he fell asleep. What also makes sense to me about that moment was Jesus' trust in God. As the windstorm blew up and the waves became chaotic, the disciples feared for their safety. Jesus had no such fear. Jesus trusted that God was with them in that moment. Many focus their attention on the comment Jesus makes. Upon waking, he asks them, "Where is your faith?" Some interpret his question of them as an indictment. One more reason to feel inadequate in our faith. What I suggest is we ask ourselves a different question. What if Jesus' question to the disciples was said by him in a gentle tone instead of an accusatory one? What if, instead of his hearing, "Why do you doubt? Why is your faith not strong enough?" which often that's what our human ears hear? What if we heard Jesus say, "All will be okay. Trust. Trust in God's promise because God is here with us." It is by trusting in God's promise to always be with us, to be our light in the darkness, our calm in the storm, that we find peace in the chaos of life. As the waves crash upon our boat, we can trust in the God who created us and loves us dearly. We can trust for comfort and reassurance that all will be well. Another gift, another beautiful gift of being in relationship with God is that we can share God's light and love out into the world. Suffering, unfortunately, is a part of our world. Hardship and struggle seem to be woven into the fabric of our lives. Though they are not with us always, they are definitely upon us at times. It is by finding God's light and sharing that light out into the world, we offer God's love and peace to others. In keeping with this theme of our Lenten series, I'd like to tell you about a place off the northwest coast of France. It is a section of water that is known to sailors because it's difficult to navigate and very dangerous. For whatever reason, this area of the ocean experiences intense storms with high winds and powerful waves that throw ships around as if they weigh nothing at all. Unfortunately, this strip of the sea is part of a major shipping route for Europe. Many ships must travel through its storms and angry seas to reach their destination, to do their job. Over the centuries, many ships have wrecked and sunk to the ocean's bottom as a result of the horrible storms in this area. In the early 1900s, a lighthouse was built to guide the ships through this passage. Unlike some lighthouses, most lighthouses that sit at the end of a peninsula, this lighthouse, called La Jument, sits out in the middle of the ocean upon a single rock. Its long, strong, tall body stands 3 stories high, with, of course, its light fixed atop. In the late 80s, there was a horrible storm that raged in this part of the area. It raged around the lighthouse, and the sea was so angry that the crashing waves almost reached its light. A photographer, wanting to take pictures of the stormy sea, hired a helicopter to take him out over the water. As they approached the lighthouse, the photographer saw a huge wave coming towards La Jument. Just as the wave crashed against the lighthouse, the photographer snapped his pictures. In the picture, we can see the anger of the ocean, the power of the waves, and the chaos that surrounded the lighthouse on the one single rock. To this day, La Jument still stands. It still occupies that rock in the middle of the ocean. And it still offers its light to the ships and sailors needing to travel through the waters. Regardless of how powerful the storms around it become, or how high the waves crash upon its walls, La Jument stands steady and shines its light out into the sea. Just as the beam from a lighthouse spreads out over the ocean, guiding ships in their journey, we are called to share God's light and love in the world. La Jument was built so its light could call out across the stormy seas to the ships caught in the chaos of the waves. Just like those ship captains, we too must look for God's light in times of chaos and hardship. We too must rely on the path that is illuminated before us. God promises to be there with us. It is our job to trust in God's promise and to look for that light, even if it's the tiniest of glimmers. And it is also our job to brightly shine God's light out into the world. The first time I saw an image of La Jument, I was speechless. All I could focus on was the intensity of the sea and the height of the waves. It was only after I stared at it for some time that I noticed in this little tiny image the lighthouse keeper in the doorway. In the picture, he seems so small in relation to the storm that surrounded him. What is not seen, though, is the brightness of the light that he lit. He made sure it shined out over the crashing waves so that others could pass in safety. Amen.